Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Now, today there's been a little bit more information about some of the upcoming summoner changes that are going to be happening in order to facilitate the Necromancer rework that's happening in the Blight League. So, some of this information was from a couple of days ago, and that's the new gems for summoners in Path of Exile Blight, and the other one is the new type of wand that was revealed today, Saturday my time. So, first up, I want to go through the new gems that have been added, and GGG put up an announcement on their website and also a YouTube video. The YouTube video is worth a watch, and it'll be linked in the comments below. So, first up, there is Summon Carrion Golem, which is a well-rounded attacker that uses a rapid melee attack, a leap slam to get in the thick of combat, and a powerful cooldown-restricted multi-cascade slam. As its passive golem buff, it grants additional physical damage to all non-golem minions, including their attacks and spells. So this is something that will help with any build that has a lot of other minions as well as the Carrion Golem, and in particular will help in conjunction with Vaal Summon Skeletons. Vaal Summon Skeletons has always been a powerful minion skill, and it looks like it's getting even better here. Now, it has a unique function amongst golems, granting more damage for each of your non-golem minions around it, up to 80% more damage. A single Carrion Golem fits well into established minion builds as an extra bonus to all of your necromantic minions, but it can also be invested in more heavily by taking various sources of additional golems, and there'll be a new notable passive for that, and using multiple golems alongside a swarm of zombies and or skeletons. And so there are also four new support gems that you can place on minions to change their behavior and function, and these are exciting. Now, very important caveat, we don't have stats on these gems yet. I expect that these will all have some degree of more damage multiplier for your minions that are attached to them, but if you have a look at some of the support gems that have been released in recent times, Impale support has been the most powerful of the recently added support gems, and it's one that seemed mechanically to be quite weak. So do keep that in mind. Any of these could be extremely good if they get a very large more multiplier, including even Meat Shield, which I think is one that people generally expect to be very niche and seldom used. So with that in mind, we won't know the numbers on these gems until about 42 hours before League launch, according to past practice, where, generally speaking, the League launches at 9 AM New Zealand time on a Saturday, and usually it'll be about 3 PM on New Zealand time on the Thursday that we'll get the information on all of the gems that are being released. So with that out of the way, Feeding Frenzy support is something that makes your supported minions aggressive, increasing the range they'll seek out enemies. It also grants hits from minions a chance to give you the Feeding Frenzy buff, granting more minion damage and increased minion attack, cast, and movement speed. While you have this buff, supported minions deal even more damage. So basically, get your monsters to deal their first hit, and they will cascade, dealing more and more damage up to a certain limit. The key thing with this is that first line, though. Make supported minions aggressive. What this does in practice is it causes their aggro radius to go larger than it currently is. Now, this will be better for some minions than it is for others. There's been a little bit of discussion on the Path of Exile subreddit where Mark from Gruniger Games has commented that players that are expecting to use this on some spectres will be disappointed. He was commenting about some of the spectres that already have very large aggro radiuses. So then, as a result, they won't be able to. They already become aggressive at a distance that is larger than their ability to see. So for that reason, making them aggressive won't actually have any increase in their effectiveness. However, that was just a couple of specific spectres, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in practice. There is already a way to make your golems gain the aggressive mod, and it's basically considered mandatory for all golem builds at the moment to use those primordial jewels in order to gain aggressiveness. This is just simply a new way to get it on Feeding Frenzy support. Second up is Meat Shield support in the new supports. So this makes supported minions defensive, and there's a comment later that if something is both defensive and aggressive, the two cancel out and they have their normal behavior. Now this causes them to only attack enemies that get very close to you, so this will decrease their aggro radius most likely. It grants the minions a chance to taunt on hit, which is a mod that you can get on Abyss Jewels. Basically, against monsters that are immune to taunts, such as the Shaper, if they're taunted to something else, then the Shaper will still have his normal target selection for his normal aggression protocol, but when he is taunted to someone else that's not you and he hits you, his hits deal 10% less damage. Against monsters that are not immune to taunts, which is most of the game, if you taunt an enemy, they will focus on that monster. So they will focus on your minion instead of you, which is an extremely, extremely powerful defensive buff. One thing, though, that I will say, that if you're thinking of using this as a way of defending yourself, be very, very aware that projectiles that chain from enemies, if you've got minions close to you, you're going to be getting hit a lot by them. Additionally, if these meat shield empowered minions are close to you and they're targeted by an AoE shot, you may well end up as collateral damage to that area of effect attack that is aimed at your minion. Additionally, though, meat shield, as well as the taunt on hit, it reduces the damage they take, and it causes them to deal more damage to enemies close to you. And then here's that point that I was making about aggressive and defensive together cancelling each other out. But all other bonuses from the support gems still apply, so if you have both Feeding Frenzy and Meat Shield on the same monster, on the same minion, then the taunt on hit will still occur, the reduced damage they take will still occur, and you will still gain the Feeding Frenzy buff, causing them to deal more damage. So, plus you'll also get any more multipliers that these two gems have on them. Next up is Deathmark Support, and this is really, really, really strong in my opinion. Although I do need to see it in practice, and I do need to see numbers on it. The Deathmark Support gem grants supported minions more damage and grants you the Deathmark skill. Casting Deathmark on an enemy causes all minions supported by Deathmark support to prioritize attacking that target and gives them a further damage multiplier against that enemy. Casting Deathmark on a new enemy removes the existing Deathmark. Very simple here. This is your way of prioritizing a target. This is really useful in some specific situations. A good example would be you're running a high tier betrayal encounter, and say you've got a fortification encounter in the betrayal content and spawn in one of your maps. You absolutely need to destroy those healing totems inside the middle, and so you need to focus on demolishing the doors to the fortification first. This will allow you to order all of your minions, except perhaps ones that you've got attached to Meat Shield support because you want them to stay close to you. It'll allow you to get a whole bunch of minions to ignore everything except for those doors. So you'll get them focused on those doors, then you go in there, you kill, either you can mark each of the healing totems, or you can just blow up the totems yourself. And then after the healing totems are dead, you can say, okay, minions with Deathmark support, ignore everything except kill Vagan. And then you can go and kill Leo with your attacks. Let's just say it's Vagan and Leo. Obviously, could be an entirely different combination of Betrayal Masters that are there. But, you can get Vagan and Leo down that way. And then all of this time, there's powerful adds that are spawning, and you're basically not wasting your damage killing million hit point necromancers and 500,000 hit point zombies that really don't need to die. And then at the end, of course, you can clean them up once once you've killed the important targets. So that's an interesting and very, very, very useful setup that you've got. You can also Deathmark to have precise targeting for specific minions, and Deathmark will override aggressive or defensive behavior while it is active, which is again very, very, very useful. The minions will then fall back on their normal targeting if no Deathmark is present. So different combinations of these three support gems let you use different minions for different roles. So for example, you might have zombies with Meat Shield, so they stay close and they beat up anything that comes close to you. Carrion Golem with Feeding Frenzy to just go berserk, and Deathmark on both of them so that you can send them after bosses while you dodge the boss's attacks. Last up, so that's 3 behavior modifying gems that we've had so far. The Infernal Legion support is a new one. Basically what it does, it kind of is like giving your minions the ability to cast Righteous Fire. So the Infernal Legion support gem causes supported minions to take a large percentage of their maximum life as fire damage over time. They all gain a burning damage aura, dealing fire damage over time to nearby enemies. And I will just point out that As much as this says a large percentage of their maximum life as fire damage over time that they inflict to themselves, from having watched the video that GGG posted, it doesn't actually seem to be that large a percentage. They are lasting for many, many, many seconds before they burn out. Now, they all gain a burning damage aura, dealing fire damage over time to nearby enemies, just like Righteous Fire. This effect doesn't stack, but is modified by minion damage increases and other support gems. This support can be used to deal damage to large groups of enemies, and is available at quite a low level, so it is an alternative to melee splash for some minion types. It also works well alongside the minion instability keystone, letting you use your minions as walking time bombs. Now, if you're not familiar with minion instability, what it does is it causes your minions to explode, dealing massive fire damage when they hit about 1/3 of their maximum life. This destroys the minion, and it's something that you may have been killed in the Lunaris Temple level 1 in Act 3 by a boss that spawns there. Very early in Lunaris 1, there is a Necromancer NPC that uses minion instability and conjures a whole lot of minions, zombies, and undead that come and attack you, and then they explode when they're reduced to low hit points. And if you've got low fire resistance, this absolutely wrecks you. In any case, that's where you've probably died to minion instability in the past. I certainly know I've been killed by that boss plenty of times because I keep underestimating her. Now, so that is basically the end of the new support of the new gems that have been noted so far. The thing that was released today, though, and this is a really interesting one, is the Convoking Wand. Now, in Path of Exile Blight, we are introducing a new wand base type, the Convoking Wand. You can see here there's a rare wand that's been rolled up. Now, this is an Atlas drop, so expect this to be about as rare as a Steel Ring or a Vanguard Belt or a Crystal Belt or any of those sorts of things. It only requires level 72, which makes me think that it will start appearing in Tier 5 and higher maps. That's generally the way that these Atlas bases work. The ones that exist so far are available in a certain octant of the Atlas. So, for instance, Steel Rings can appear anywhere that is northeast of the Shaper's Lair, between northeast and due east of the Shaper's Lair. I expect that this may be, again, that this Convoking Wand base type may be allocated to one octant of the map. However, it's entirely possible that the entire procedure for distributing Atlas bases may change too. Now, so in addition to the usual wand modifiers, there are 8 additional minion modifiers that can roll on it. The first thing to note is that there are a lot of wand modifiers, and I will come back to this. This is Path of Exile PoEDB. It's a database of data mined information about the game. And you'll see here that there's a very large collection of mods that can roll on wands, and many of these, actually, there's plenty of different types within them. So, you can see here there's all sorts of different increased percentage fire damage, increased percentage spell damage, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of possible mods that can roll on any given wand. However, the one that I think is probably most interesting is locked to only appear when you use a bound fossil, and it is minions deal 75 to 80% increased damage, which is only available on item level 75 and above. But the second tier is pretty good too. It's available on level 50 and up, and I'm suspecting that this new wand base type is going to be minimum level 72. Certainly the one that's Teased is, which means that the lowest item level it will generally be available at will be at item level 72. So that means that any Convoking Wand will be able to roll this tier, and most of them will be able to roll this tier as well. So that's in terms of mods you can already roll on a wand that are appealing. That's the best one of them, I think. But there's plenty more. And let's just have a quick look here at some of the things that have been teased. So we have minions have increased movement speed, is a great roll. Minions deal increased damage, again, is a great roll, and is the same as what you get from a bound fossil. I'm actually not sure whether this wand has been rolled with a bound fossil and has happened to roll tier 2 Bound Fossil mod, or whether this has just been rolled with a Chaos Orb and has been able to get that roll. But the killer here is this mod, +1 to the level of all minion skill gems. Now, notice something very important here. If you've watched my video on Cold Iron Point, the unique dagger, you will have already seen this on another. You will have already seen another example of this in practice. This is missing a very important word, and that word is socketed. This applies to minion skill gems that are in your chest. It applies to minion skill gems that are socketed into your helmet, your boots, your gloves. It's not just things that are socketed within this wand. This is an extremely powerful mod for some use cases. And potentially most interestingly, I think the minion gem that scales the most with gem levels is Herald of Agony. But there are plenty of others as well that scale. Generally speaking, minion gems are pretty sensitive to the skill gem level. So this is going to be really powerful. This is, just getting that mod on its own, even with no other mods, would be a powerful boost to your character. There's a few ways I can see you trying to focus on rolling that. And one of them is just simply to grab Bound Fossils and spam them over and over again on Convoking Wands. I'm expecting Bound Fossils will be fairly expensive next league. You know, much like Serrated Fossils have been the hype common fossil in the current Legion League, or Dense Fossils were the hyped common fossil during the Synthesis League. I wouldn't be surprised if Bound Fossils are the chase common fossil next league. So that may cost you 10 chaos an attempt. Still, I think it'll be worth it. However, there are some other options that you can consider as well. And one high budget one that I want to suggest you consider is, and this is only applicable if you are someone that is going to be using Vaal Summon Skeletons somewhere on your build. What I want you to consider using is to socket in a Bound Fossil, a Faceted Fossil, and a Bloodstained Fossil, which I can't add in, unfortunately, because of the way that this site is set up. So, firstly, with a Bloodstained Fossil. Bloodstained Fossil is there because it does ridiculous things to the it does ridiculous things to the cost of Vaal skills, in particular Vaal Summon Skeletons, but you may be using other ones instead. Reducing the cost by 20% doesn't sound like much, but when you combine it with other sources, such as a second Bloodstained Fossil crafted wand, and a copy of the Flask that reduces soul cost by 25%, suddenly you can get to the point, with just a little bit of Flask effectiveness, you can get to the point that you can cast your Vaal Summon Skeletons 3 times without gaining any souls in between. This would be really good for just having an instant army available whenever you need it. Faceted Fossils cause you to get a lot of additional skill gem related modifiers. And given that we have this new mod, +1 to the level of all minion skill gems, Faceted Fossils, I believe, make that 10 times as likely to roll as they otherwise would be. Now keep in mind, Faceted Fossils are very expensive. We're only going to the extent of using a Faceted Fossil to make this line more likely to be rolled, because we're using a Bloodstained Fossil as well. And then finally, we're adding in a Bound Fossil. Again, should make this line 10 times as likely to roll, and also unlocks that very powerful delve. Those 2 very powerful delve mods at the bottom here. So 75 to 80% increased damage and 60 to 74%. So that's an option that comes to mind for me. Faceted plus Bound plus Bloodstained, but it's not going to be the only one. People could experiment with all sorts of other things. One thing that I haven't discussed so far is the possibility of using glyphic fossils, which are another one of the very rare ones, and that enable you to get various essence locked mods. So specifically in the essence locked mods, that's not the correct one. It's your hits inflict decay. This is of no use at all. Chance to gain frenzy, power, and endurance charges on kill, not so great. The one that you want is this. Triggers level 20 spectral spirits while this weapon is equipped. If you can hit this as well, and that does not seem to be a very Oh, no, actually, given that it's got the minion tag, in conjunction with the bound fossil, it should be pretty doable. Your glyphic fossil should be heavily biased towards this role. Given that you've got this with bound fossils, I think there's a lot of potential to get a really good combination that has the +1 to the level of minion gems, has lots of extra minion damage, permanently has a spectral spirits up for you to use. Generally speaking, I think these ones are going to be really, really good. In any case, if you've got any questions, fire away. Otherwise, I hope you have a good one.